Nintendo has been doing a ton of IP crossovers recently, and I have a theory of what the 2020 crossover could be. Hello everyone, my name is Adam and welcome to TimeLag Gaming. So every single year the Switch has been out, Nintendo has partnered up and allowed a third party to use a Nintendo IP for a crossover game. In 2017, Nintendo let Ubisoft use the Mario IP in Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle, a turn-based tactical role-playing strategy game where the Rabbids invade the Mushroom Kingdom. Then later in 2018, they did a big Donkey Kong DLC with Mario + Rabbids. Also in 2018, Nintendo let Ubisoft use the Star Fox IP in Starlink Battle for Atlas, an open-world flying game. Later in 2019, they also released DLC to let you play as more Star Fox characters and added more Star Fox content. Also in 2019, Nintendo worked with Brace Yourself Games to make Cadence of Hyrule, a crossover between Crypt of the Necrodancer and Legend of Zelda. And later in 2019, Nintendo's letting Sega use the Mario IP in Mario & Sonic at the Olympic Games. So in a little over 2 years, Nintendo has lent out their IP 4 different times to 3 separate companies, twice to Ubisoft. It's obvious that Nintendo's really into this whole IP crossover thing. It's great for both Nintendo and the company that they let use the IP. And of course, it's great for us the consumers because it gives us a unique spin on these different franchises and tides us over until the next release in the series. So what could the next big IP crossover be in 2020? Well, I think it could be Kid Icarus with Gods and Monsters. Gods and Monsters is a new IP from Ubisoft launching on February 25th of 2020. All we have right now is a cinematic trailer, some images, and some details. This is an open world storybook adventure where Phoenix is on a quest to save the Greek gods. This game is obviously based all around mythology. On the website summary, it reads, "Embark on a journey to the Isles of the Blessed, taken over by dangerous creatures of mythology. Prove your legendary heroism by taking on their leader, Typhon, the deadliest monster in all mythology, in a face-off for the ages. Explore a beautiful fantasy world where tricky puzzles, mysterious dungeons, and heroic feats await. The journey will be as challenging and rewarding as the final destination. Will you be the hero of the legends foretold?" There are definitely some Breath of the Wild vibes here, but because of all the mythology in this game, it just feels like Kid Icarus would be the perfect IP to cross over. If you don't know, Kid Icarus is also based all around mythology. In Kid Icarus Uprising, you are fighting the goddess of darkness, Medusa, as well as the forces of Hades, who is Lord of the Underworld. There are tons of different mythological creatures and influences within the game. In Gods and Monsters, the gods have been defeated by Typhon, who is a god and a monster, which makes him the deadliest creature of mythology. He's also said to be the father of all monsters. With both games heavily revolving around Greek mythology, it makes perfect sense to make this a Kid Icarus IP crossover. In Kid Icarus Uprising, you defeat Medusa. Now there's an even bigger threat, Typhon. Shouldn't Pit come to help? Now I do think Gods and Monsters should stand on its own. Also, people might not want Kid Icarus diluting the purity of representation of mythology within Gods and Monsters. So Ubisoft can simply treat this crossover like what they did with Starlink. You can play as Pit from Kid Icarus, and there could be side missions with Kid Icarus elements. And naturally, this would only be on the Nintendo Switch version. Want more evidence as to why this could actually be happening? Well, on the website it also says the gods of Olympus have given you special powers. Use them to fight and explore on the ground and in the air. Sound familiar? In Kid Icarus Uprising, the goddess of light Palutena gives Pit the power of flight. Obviously Palutena isn't actually in Greek mythology, but in Gods and Monsters, Olympus has given you powers, and the combat will be on ground and in the air. That highly resembles Kid Icarus. In Uprising, every mission starts out with aerial combat, then you go to the ground combat. This would be the absolute perfect combination for an IP crossover. Please tell me in the comments what your thoughts are on all this, because I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. I'm surprised no one else has brought this up yet. Kid Icarus with Gods and Monsters would be amazing. Just imagine flying around this huge, beautiful open world as Pit. That would be surreal. But would Nintendo even let Ubisoft use this IP? Well, in an interview with Reggie about working with third parties for IP crossovers, he said it's company specific, opportunity specific and based on a foundation of trust and knowledge around our intellectual property, and the fact that the way the property is going to be used will work. So it seems like Nintendo's open to all sorts of IP crossovers as long as they trust them to handle the IP well and that it will work well in that game's world. Now obviously Ubisoft has handled the last 2 IP crossovers very well, and both games went on to receive DLC. Mario plus Rabbids also sold very well. Starlink didn't sell as well, but that was likely because it was marketed as a Toys to Life game and was a bit confusing in that way. Still, both games were great and Ubisoft did an excellent job handling Nintendo's IPs. So I think Nintendo would absolutely trust Ubisoft with the Kid Icarus IP. And as Nintendo probably isn't planning to release a Kid Icarus game anytime soon, I honestly think it's very possible that this crossover could happen. Now you may be thinking, well, if they're going to do this crossover, wouldn't they have announced that at E3? Well, no, not at all. Starlink was revealed at E3 in 2017, and they didn't reveal the Star Fox crossover until E3 2018. So they didn't announce a crossover until 4 months before the game released. Gods and Monsters releases in February of 2020. That means there is still plenty of time for them to announce this potential crossover. If we assume they're going to wait about 4 months before launch, that would mean they're going to reveal this Kid Icarus IP crossover for Gods and Monsters around October of this year. Well, usually we get a Nintendo Direct in September and usually one in January. So if this is actually happening, they'll probably reveal it during one of those directs. Also, besides all that, it would have made no sense to reveal it at E3 because we haven't seen any gameplay of Gods and Monsters yet. All they gave us was a teaser for the game with a cinematic shot and then some still images. So of course they wouldn't reveal the crossover right away. And because we still haven't seen any gameplay, maybe Nintendo and Ubisoft wait to reveal this until the January Direct. Another part of the IP crossover that could be amazing is if there is an online battle mode. Kid Icarus Uprising had an amazing online battle mode with free-for-all and 3-on-3 battles. This battle mode is actually a ton of fun even to this day, 7 years later. So imagine if Gods and Monsters offered an online battle mode with different mythological characters, monsters, as well as characters from Kid Icarus. That would be awesome. Now all this is just speculation. There aren't any rumors about this, there aren't any leaks, etc. But based on all the evidence between the similarities of these two games and how Nintendo and Ubisoft have been treating their crossovers, I really do think it's possible. Honestly, I think it just depends if Ubisoft wants there to be a crossover with this IP. I believe if Ubisoft wanted to make it happen, Nintendo would let them. So it's all up to Ubisoft. And it's totally possible that they won't want to do a crossover. Maybe they really want to keep the lore mythology within the game pure. Now we recently got some more information on the game in an interview on Ubisoft's website. In that interview, they revealed that even though the game is based on myths, they are taking a historical approach to the game. The creative director said, "During production, we started thinking, what if we made something that's 100% mythology? We can make a dramatically different game than we did before. Gods and Monsters really is a brand new type of game for us that is a complete mythological adventure built on the 4-year background we have of building a historical Greek setting." Then the senior producer said, "We're bringing that same rigorous historical approach that we had on Assassin's Creed to this mythological setting. We're really trying to understand those myths to ensure that we can retell them in a way that is interesting and profound for our players." So based on this interview, it seems like maybe Ubisoft wouldn't want to make this game a crossover. However, at the same time, they said they want to retell these myths in an interesting and profound way. Including elements from Kid Icarus would help make things even more interesting, and they could do it in a way that wouldn't intrude on the mythology. In this interview, they also revealed that the hero Phoenix is fully customizable, and later on you can customize your armor, etc. So who's to say that you couldn't have the playable character be Pit from Kid Icarus? Except they also said that the game is being narrated by a Greek poet named Homer, who's telling the story to his grandkids. Since it's so strictly based on a story, perhaps there isn't room for a crossover like this, so this might not happen at all, but I think we can all agree that it would be awesome. If this isn't the next big IP crossover, the next one would probably be a sequel to Mario plus Rabbids, as that has been rumored, or it could be something completely different. We just have to wait and see. I personally really hope this happens because Kid Icarus is an amazing game and we probably won't get another one for another 18 years. Gods and Monsters would be the perfect game to have a crossover with. Imagine being able to fly around this beautiful open world as Pit. Maybe you don't even unlock the Kid Icarus content until after you beat the main story. Then after that, you get access to Kid Icarus themed missions, sort of a secondary story. And then you could also play as Kid Icarus throughout the main game in a hard mode. Realistically, this is the most plausible way it could happen because it wouldn't intrude on the mythology or the story at all. You know what? These are the type of videos I love doing the most because they are why I started YouTube in the first place, to share my unique ideas or points of view that nobody else is talking about. And these videos typically don't perform as well, so I really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone you know who loves Kid Icarus or mythology. And if you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing because I do all sorts of unique Nintendo content. Alright, now I want to hear your take on all this. Do you think we could actually see a Kid Icarus Gods and Monsters crossover? Are there any Nintendo IP crossovers that you want to see? Let me know your take in the comments down below. Thanks again for watching.